Hello again, friend. Eric Miller here. I'm attending an online conference with the Spiritual Directors International that I'm a part of. And one of the sessions we had last night was on AI and the implications of AI in the future, what that holds for spirituality, companionship, and all those things. It was one of the segments was quite concerning to me that talked about the loneliness that's being experienced with young men and women for that matter too, but this is a video about for young men and about and it was concerning to me because I have teenagers in my house, men, boys, and I see some of the things happening with them, and we're working on that with them to help them with real virtual friendships, right? So the AI bots that are being created are they're young men are starting to have relationships with these bots. So do you know of anyone who is doing that? Drop something in the comments and let me know if you've seen this or if you're experiencing this right now. I'd really love to know more about your experience or those you've seen, how the implications of that's weighing out. So also in that segment, they were talking about the bots that are being created, AI generated religion, which was shocking to me. And maybe you've heard this too. I haven't. It was until yesterday. So all shocking stuff. So I want to get back to the purpose of this video. I just wanted to give you a little bit of commentary about that in the beginning, what I was thinking about you and how I can best help you with healthy masculinity and with ways in which so you don't feel lonely. So this video today is about another article I posted on Substack, and the link to it is in the description of the video. So please pick that up there if you'd like to read this. There's more content there also. And the article, I think, is really relevant because of where we're at in our culture with the Manosphere and the alpha culture, all that. The culture where influencers are saying you need to do this or be this or you're not worthy of being a man. And I kind of was in that too for a while. And I think in my 20s, I'm a lot older than the Gen Z population. I won't say how old, but I was also taught that to be a man, you have to be aggressive and show, your dominance and those types of things. And as I've aged, I've discovered that really is a very fragile form of masculinity because something happens, you get injured. I'm a cyclist, an athlete. When I've been injured, I can't perform. I had my identity wrapped around being a cyclist. And when I couldn't do that, felt like I was in trouble because I didn't have that identity because I couldn't perform. I was injured. So what I've come to believe is that true masculinity, healthy masculinity, what a man is a man is accountable. A man is respectful. A man is in a position where the point of authority isn't to dominate others, it's collaboration thereof. And then you get the respect when you're in that status or in that position. So that's for another episode. But I want to talk more today about this article I wrote. It's called The Beliefs You Inherited Without Knowing It. So if this is you, I hope you'll listen to this full video or watch it because it's pretty impactful. If you know someone who's in their 20s or 30s, young man, please share this content with them because I think it'll help them. So let's dive in and I'll make some comments on the backside. All right. Okay. The beliefs you inherited without knowing it. What you think is yours is mostly someone else's. All right. There's a man living inside you that you didn't choose, and he showed up long before you knew you were choosing anything at all. He has opinions about money, women, strength, about whether crying counts as weakness, about whether you're allowed to ask for help. He carries a whole script about what a man is supposed to be, and you've been reading from it for so long that you no longer recognize it as a script. Most men go their entire lives without noticing him, and over time they make that unchosen version of themselves into their identity. This piece is about how to wake up, how to notice him, and what becomes possible once you do that. where the beliefs came from. You weren't born with beliefs you carry about being a man, and nobody does, right? You absorbed them from your father or whatever male figure stood in for him, that shaped just as much by what he was as by what he wasn't. And sometimes sometimes I lost my place here. Sorry about that. And sometimes most of all by the fact that he wasn't around at all. Sorry about that. They came from the men in your neighborhood, from your coaches, from the silences in your house when something hard happened and no one talked about it. They came from what was praised and what was punished, from movies where the man held it together and every joke where the man who didn't was a punchline. By the time you were 10, you already had a fairly complete picture of what a man does and doesn't do. And by the time you were 20, you were defending that picture as if you had decided on it yourself. It's not your fault. Let me make that clear. But you didn't decide on it. You inherited it. Why it feels like it's yours. Inherited beliefs feel like yours because they're wired into your reactions long before your thoughts ever get involved. You feel ashamed of the wrong thing without knowing why. And you go quiet at the wrong moment without knowing why. And you laugh at the joke that was actually about you until one day you realize that all along you were the joke. These beliefs don't live in your head. They live in your gut. And that's exactly what makes them feel like it's the truth. But a feeling of the truth isn't the same as the truth. It's just a belief that has been there long enough to feel like a worn out old couch. What does this have to do with masculinity and the manosphere? This is where the men selling masculinity online step in. They watch a generation grow up with a script that no longer fits, in a country that no longer works the way it once did. And when they saw all that quiet confusion, they did what salesmen always do. They offered you an upgrade. The upgrade is louder, more certain, more aggressive. It tells you that the reason your life isn't working is because the world is rigged against men, and that the cure is to go harder, get richer, get more dominant, and trust no one. These views were all delivered through clips of expensive cars, shouted advice, and that constant low hum of grievance. But it's also a script, and it's also inherited. Just from a different father this time, a male influencer. Let me repeat that. Just from a different father this time, a male influencer online who has decided who you're supposed to be without ever meeting you. The population of young boys and men that haven't had a father growing up is astronomical. I grew up back in the 70s, and I didn't have a dad then, and it was kind of a growing thing back then. So where do you get shaped into how to be a man? I chose pretty negative behaviors that really created a lot of chaos in my life and hurt a lot of people. I tried that whole, I know this stuff personally because I've done it, I've had it, and I know that when we have this constant messaging given to us, it shapes who we are, and it's really not our fault, right? We take this information in. The issue is how you respond. When you are aware that this is a problem, that's the part that could be your fault if you don't take action. So I don't want to be too hard on you here. All right, back to the article. Trading one inherited script for another isn't freedom, it's just changing channels. How to notice the inherited voice. Let me repeat. The way to start noticing the inherited man inside you is to pay attention to the moments when your reaction is bigger than the situation actually deserves. We're talking about emotional intelligence here. Someone cuts you off in traffic, you're furious for an hour. Someone cut you off in traffic and you're furious for an hour. Why is that? Your girlfriend asks you a simple question about money and your chest gets tight. Why? A friend mentions therapy and you go quiet. Why? Your grandfather calls you and you feel small for the rest of the day. Why did that happen? The size of the reaction is always the tell. When you respond more than the moment requires, you aren't really reacting to the moment at all. You're reacting to a belief about what the moment means, what kind of a man it's made you, what's exposing in you, and what it's taking from you. That belief came from somewhere and it's buried in your subconscious. What happens when you find a misaligned inherited belief? How do you move forward? This is the part I was talking about, into action. So, yes, it's true. We inherited a lot of these beliefs about manhood, about how to be men, but when we find out, when we see that what we've inherited isn't working, that it's causing chaos, it's causing unhappiness, loneliness, all these things, that's an opportunity, my friend, to use that pain, leverage it, and become better. I'm going to help you do that. When you find an inherited belief, you don't have to do anything dramatic about it. You don't have to fight it, announce it, or burn it into the ground. You just have to be aware that it's there, You have to be aware that it's there. Because once you see it, you have the choice to stop it from running you. At first, maybe it's not all at once, but the moment you can actually name a belief. Oh, I learned that from my dad, or that's the script from the locker room, or that's what the algorithm has been telling me for 2 years now. It begins to lose its power once you identify that. You've created a small distance between yourself and the belief, and that distance is where your actual self finally gets to come alive. Every man I've worked with who is becoming someone he respects has had to do this work, this inner work, this very important work. Not in a weekend, not from reading one piece, but over a substantial amount of time. And it doesn't have to be, years. It could be, but it doesn't have to be. It can be a lot less time than that if you decide to dig in and go through that pain, not around it. And it always begins with the same first sentence. That belief is not mine. That is not me. That's not my true identity. I inherited it, and I get to decide. You get to decide. That's the thing with this Manosphere culture, is they kind of try to take away that agency of you having the ownership to move forward and be responsible and also be what a true man is. It's not the stuff that some of these people like Andrew Tate, for example, would be trying to sell you. You get to decide, my friend. So why does all this matter? We're in a moment in history when more men than ever are confused about what kind of a man they need to be. The old answers no longer work. The new answers being shouted at you on every screen are really just the old answers wearing a different costume. There's no shortcut through this, and no influencer can tell you who you actually are. What there is, instead, is the slow work of noticing. The man inside you that didn't choose isn't your enemy. He kept you alive. Maybe through some really tough times. Maybe some home domestic abuses. Maybe some other things at school, being bullied. Maybe even being bullied online. He helped you make it this far, but he isn't the only man you can be. And at some point, you have to stop letting him drive. Start with one inherited belief this week. Name it, trace it back to where it came from, and sit with it long enough to ask whether you actually believe it now. That's where becoming someone starts. That's where it always starts. All right, let me end with some comments about this. The beliefs you have now, as I've talked about, are inherited, a lot of them, about what to be a man, what that means in our culture today. I have a friend, pretty close friend, that believes it's the dominance, it's the warrior culture, that's the sign of a man and how to be one. So it's not your fault that when you grew up, you went through school, you were told to be more like a girl. You were told that if you are adventuresome like a natural boy would be, that was wrong, that you needed to be sedated like Ritalin or any of those types of medications to calm you down and make you into a zombie. It's not your fault. We really fell short in the education field about educating young boys to become men and what that means. So today I read a survey recently that said that parents today would much rather have a girl than a boy. And why is that? I think that perception has gotten into our culture where it's easier to be a girl today. And I don't want to go down the rabbit hole too far with that, but because we do have agency to change these things. And I'm here to be part of that change to help that perception shift, because I know you probably know what I'm talking about. So I'm not really revealing anything new. Maybe you've had problems even finding a girlfriend of your same age group. Maybe you feel like you didn't get hired because you did all the right things. You went to school, got your education, but yet you felt like you were replaced by a minority or by a woman. Maybe you have good reason to feel like. Maybe you are of the age, if you're a Gen Z man watching this, that you grew up, you saw political unrest, you've seen the economy not work, you've seen all the ways in which democracy has failed, and you've never experienced the good stuff like I have. I'll just tell you, at this shooting of this video right now, I'm 58, and I have experienced good times and seen how democracy can work and how you can flourish in it. And the 80s is a good example of that, the decade of decadence, they call that. And that was capitalism, democracy, working. And I won't get too far down that rabbit hole, but you have good reason to believe that authoritarianism is a better way to go. So I'm getting a little bit political here, but I want to be authentic about who I am with you, because it really bothers me about what's happening in our culture here in the United States. And I'm here to help make that change happen. So next week coming up, I'll have another article about how to communicate more effectively and how to deal with difficult situations, maybe when you're being bullied or your beliefs are being questioned, about when you're trying to change a belief into something new and the people around you are feeling scared because you're changing and they don't know how to deal with that. So until again, my friend, I look forward to talking with you.